Hello, and welcome to episode 22 of Bodied, the Cloud9 Fancast. Today we'll be discussing Cloud9's breakout season performance against TSM and Team Dignitas, as well as their upcoming matches against Immortals and CLG. I'm your host, Havokpus, and today I am joined by...
Frozencreek, barely sick now, so if we lose this weekend, that is why.
And I'm Ian, I'm back. Back at it again.
Coming back at you like Cleopatra. And this week, we're going to be trying something new. We have a CLG fan who is joining us for the show today. Say hello, Nefarious.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, since Cloud9 will be playing against CLG this weekend, we thought we'd shake things up a bit, have someone from the opposite side come in to talk about the upcoming match, so it should be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Alright, but before we go into the match details, we have our first fantasy update. So, I foolishly misunderstood EU's schedule and ended up only having I had Reckless in my flex spot, and he only played one game while everyone else played two.
Whoops.
So that probably screwed me over.
I'm pretty sure I mentioned that
potentially winning.
Like 4 times.
Yeah, I think I might have just interpreted it differently, just like, I don't know what he's talking about. I'm going to get all the points.
Yeah, well, see, I had Impact on my fantasy team, and he only played one game too, so thanks, Impact.
And it was the third game, right? So did it count?
No, it did not,
Or were
because
you out?
for us, we did best of 2.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
I had no one in the top 10, and I still scored the third most points last week.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the hottest pick was probably Stixay, aka the Big Dixay.
Dude, hell yeah.
Who scored a whopping 116.94 points, which is pretty big. That's putting up pretty big numbers.
Dude, that's what I'm talking about.
You guys have any other hot picks? Which picks are hot? Which picks are not?
Huhi did pretty well.
Oh yeah, Huhi did surprisingly well, actually.
Huhi did very well this weekend. He had 89 points, and that's including a loss as well.
I got Odo and Trick, and they both put up pretty good numbers. So definitely pick up H2K because they looked really good this first week.
Not for the second week, Rex. They're not playing 2 games.
Yeah.
I think it's
Don't-
Unicorns and Splice.
Change that.
Oh, hi.
They're only playing one game. So
FlyQuest
maybe not pick them up.
FlyQuest did super well. Hi got a ton of points.
Yeah, High. If you're gonna pick up anyone from FlyQuest, it's got to be High. I think he's the only one that's gonna actually drop a lot of points.
Yeah, he's gonna put the team on his back and probably win a lot.
Also, as I was saying before the split, Acadian's a boss.
Dude,
He
he
was
was
very good.
impressive.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he actually looked like one of the better Echo Fox players.
He's like legit good. So I'm super stoked to see how he's gonna do, but he's probably just gonna sit on the bench all year.
I did think it was funny that he shit talked to Nori before the Phoenix 1 match, and then they lost.
Yeah, that was
I don't know if
kinda
you can
funny.
really blame Acadian for that, though.
No, true.
I mean,
Most people were blaming Keith.
Right, I mean, because if you get your mid laner ahead by 2 kills in lane, that you should be able to have a massive impact on the map at that point. In theory.
Yeah, Echo Fox definitely has some communication shot calling issues.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
have
ADC
a lot of issues.
Yeah, for sure. If we don't have any other fantasy crap to talk about, do you guys want to move on to our first match from last week with C9 versus TSM?
Free SM.
Free SM. Turned from TSM to NA Library in a crisp 2-0 victory.
Dude, hell yeah. That's what I like to see from the boys in blue.
They look hot.
Indeed they did. Jensen
Indeed.
on game 1 and with Fizz looked so clean, and then Contracts on game 2 with Lee Sin just destroying Svenskeren made me so happy.
His Lee Sin, him popping off, especially with like his second game of the season, was actually really impressive.
Oh yeah,
because since he's a rookie jungler, you kind of don't expect much, especially on Lee Sin, who's like a really high mechanics based champion.
Yeah,
It was really, really
Yeah,
nice.
he bullied Sven out of his own jungle. It was like actually really impressive to watch.
So, as someone that didn't get to watch the games very closely, did TSM have any winning lanes? Because from what I've noticed, Sven Skaren seems to do very well. He likes to invade a lot, but that works more often than not when you have winning lanes and you can start bullying the enemy jungler.
Uh, a little bit. Syndra was able to push in Fizz a bit early, and I'm pretty sure Haunter pushed in Impact. Yeah, but that was just on a push and not exactly anything
Yeah, I
hardcore.
think with the Shen Maokai matchup, I think Shen is supposed to lose that matchup in lane, and he kind of gets pushed in. But other than that, I know bottom lane we really dominating bot lane, and I think that was kind of expected to see, considering that TSM's bot lane is a major downgrade from what they had with Double Lift.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they picked Callista out of nowhere.
Why did they do that?
Uh,
That was such a
I was
bad
actually
So-
excited to
Yeah,
see
Callista's
that.
So
Zyra.
because of the
Callista got
buffs.
buffed in one of the patches recently, and it was actually a pretty big buff. So her rend, whenever you used to use your rend, if you didn't get 2 kills with it, if you didn't get a kill with it, it would go on cooldown, and then when it's on cooldown, you can't stack any more stacks of rend. So now what you can do is, even if it's on cooldown, you can continue stacking. And rend, whenever you use it, it slows an enemy. So you can go get one auto on someone, slow them, and then you can start to try to kite them, and then you can still build up the rend stack. So when it's off cooldown, you could use it again. Another thing is they gave you more mana back when you kill just one enemy. Previously, you had to kill 2 enemies to get the full mana cost back, and I believe that was 40 mana. And now, if you kill one enemy, just one minion, you can still get full mana back. And that's a pretty big buff in laning.
And part of the buff was also Blade of the Ruined King, but he didn't build it. He built Essence Reaver and Death's
Yeah.
Dance.
Well,
Yeah, I think
oh yeah,
Uh,
I was gonna say. Well, I feel like the pick might not have been the worst thing because the buffs are good. But like
They're much needed.
his build was definitely super questionable. The Death's Dance, I actually agree with. I think that's a really good item. But the fact that he forewent that he is that how you say it? Like he
I think
yeah
so.
he decided to not go Blade of the Rune King, which was like
I think his cooldown reduction build was, I think, partially due to he wanted to have cooldown on maybe his Ren, but probably his ultimate, since Wild Turn and Bifrost probably don't have as great a synergy as Double Lift did, and so if Bifrost gets caught out, he can kind of save him with that ultimate, like we used to see a lot when Callista was a really big pick.
Mhm.
That unfortunately didn't work out as much because Sneaky was hitting Turtle with the arrows instead, and Turtle would have to burn a flash or something, and it wouldn't be as really effective.
I mean, let's be honest
Yeah,
here.
but you're
Let's
throwing
be honest
it
here. Zyra was the real carry of that lane.
Yeah, but if you're gonna pick Callista for the ultimate, are you just gonna throw in a Zyra who's gonna blow up immediately?
Yeah, that is a really
There's-
questionable.
There's a
pick.
Kha'Zix and a
I
Misfortune.
mean, sorry, not Syndra. Callista doesn't really synergize to any of the supports in the meta right now, right? You're not going to throw in an MF.
Yeah,
You're not
exactly.
going to throw. Okay, maybe you throw Malzahar, right? Maybe, but
the only one she synergizes
yeah.
with is Tarek.
and Tarek, yeah. But just looking at the other mage supports,
Yeah.
you're not going to throw in Zyra, right? Those are your big three right now.
Off-Flood, yeah.
Yeah. Overall, just not the best pick they could have gone for there, in my opinion. And that was just one of the contributing factors to TSM's downfall in that series, though. There was a lot of other problems other than their bot lane. Bjergsen really did not look good this series.
Yeah, that Katarina pick was kind of interesting since in game 2, looking at our draft, we have Nautilus, Lee Sin, Syndra, Varus, Taric, just a huge amount of CC, and then they pick Katarina, someone who needs to dive in and then press their ultimate to really do major damage, and we have so many counters to kind of stop her from doing that. It seemed kind of weird that Parth would choose a Katarina. I think it might be that Reaper was kind of abusing the 10-ban system and kind of saying, "Hey, we know you want to play Katarina. You've been spamming it in solo queue. Now here's your shot." And he had a counter strategy already
He
prepared for
took the
it.
bait.
I mean, he picked Katarina into a Nautilus and a Lee Sin, right? Both. I'm trying to remember if that was with the draft order, but if that's the case, then Nautilus can stop the ult, Lee Sin can kick Katarina, Syndra can use the stun, and she picked Exhaust, and then you've got Taric and Varus.
Yeah. Literally every single pick that C9 had that game had the ability to shut down Katarina in various ways. So, not the best choice.
One of the things I was really glad to see it was how well we set up and executed the 1-3-1 in game 1 with the Fizz on Jensen, which I think was a surprise pick to everyone because I have not seen a Fizz pick yet
I actually wasn't that
in
surprised
EU
at it.
in LCK.
Why weren't you surprised at it?
Or well, in a Syndra though, just because that sounds like a hell of a matchup.
Well, I mean,
For the first three levels.
Jensen played Fizz, I believe, once last season, and Jensen is always when he came on the team, he was an assassin player already, and assassins have kind of become more viable in the meta. So, looking at his strengths and looking at how assassins are now a little bit more viable, and the recent Fizz changes, I wasn't too surprised because of it. Into Syndra, that may have not been the most expected part because Syndra is just really strong.
Yeah.
But Jensen taking Fizz, I'm not surprised at.
All right. Yeah, that's fair.
Impact also built Tiamat for the 1-3-1, and I thought that they set it up very well and executed it very well with Fizz opening up the bot lane inhibitor pretty early on.
Yeah, their split push game, they played that extremely well. That was like the name of the game for the first game of the series was just like how well can C9 split up TSM on the map and abuse their lack of communication.
Yeah, and it's not like they didn't have engage because they had Rek'Sai, they had Kalista and Maokai all to engage onto Ashe, Misfortune, Kha'Zix, who don't have any disengage at all except Ashe Arrow. But the most pivotal part of that game was that fight right around Baron when Smoothie somehow did his 80 carry Misfortune all and blew up a Wild Turtle.
Oh
and
yeah,
Biofrost.
they got a pick onto I believe it was Sneaky, and then they all tried to funnel in on him, and then Smoothie was just sitting in the bush with Misfortune and like just completely unloaded on them, and then Wild Turtle literally sat in the ultimate like almost the entire ult and just killed himself. Like I don't understand if they just weren't paying attention or what was going on, but like TSM just looks so so disorganized right now. They make bad calls that don't make any sense, and then other people on the team aren't following up with the calls. Like whenever TSM got Baron in the second game, and then Biofrost, it was like a 4v5 because TSM had to, Finn had to suicide to get the Baron, but then Biofrost decided to turn around and ult Smoothie on Taric and like try and engage 4v5, and it ended up killing almost all of his team. It's like,
oh yeah, that play made absolutely no
Yeah,
sense.
it was
So
like
was that Biofrost choosing to engage? Because as far as I know, he's not the shot caller of that team. So
It
that would
looked
be
like-
Bjergsen making a call, right?
maybe it looked like it
But
was his choice. 'cause
That's a speculation, though.
Yeah, we don't know for sure.
Smoothie didn't really have any tank items either, so maybe they thought they could just melt.
But you're attacking a Taric. I mean,
but
what value do you get? You're probably going to trade someone else in that fight, and you're going to kill the support
and
first, and you're blowing the Malzahar on the support.
well, he was out of position though. It was the left or the top side of mid lane. Everyone
All right,
went
so it's
through
about
the
20.
bush on that divider.
It's about 28-45 around that time in the second game.
Yeah, Smoothie went above the dividers. So but it's not like they didn't have a Tarakal and at least a shield to jump on him. So they had plenty of stuff to keep him alive.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, just a bad call by TSM, honestly. Whoever made the
Yeah.
call, it was the wrong one.
I think one final point I want to make before we move on to the Dignitas game. I think just to put more attention on Smoothie for a second, because he looked really good in this TSM series. On Misfortune and Tarek, he was zoning with Misfortune, Make It Rain. He was landing those bullet times like you're supposed to, making a lot of good Tarek stuns, and usually getting 3 to 4 people with Tarek's ultimate and making them invulnerable. And plus his shot calling and his dominating voice on the team, I think, is something that we just really need. We just need like a rock to kind of get behind, and support us. And he's been doing that so well lately.
Yeah, C9's bot lane is just super solid.
There was no reason that Varus and Tarek it should have came out even in lane with Ashe and Melzahar, but they played it very, very well.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on to the Dig game.
That one was pretty exciting, I gotta say.
This was, in my opinion, the best series that was played in like an LCS this week. It was the Dig C9 series. Like both teams actually looked incredibly strong. They both looked really organized and like they knew what they were doing. They both made decisive calls, and they both played just really good League of Legends. And so I think these two teams are going to be both at like the top of NA, at least from what it looks like now.
Keen was very good in my opinion. I've never been a big fan of Keen. I've always thought that his champ picks, I mean, they're always kind of weird, and it seems more like they hurt the team than they help, but he was much better than I thought he would be.
Yeah, for
His
sure.
picks this week were really good. I really liked the Twisted Fate and also the Corki pick, but Corki's super strong right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, Corki's really been like that pick that you want if you're going against a difficult mage matchup or something, just so you can kind of like use your phosphorus on him to zone him off and use the Gatling gun and kind of chunk him out real quick and use his missiles to poke. So he's a really good kind of anti-mage champion at the moment.
yeah, for sure. In game 2, Jinsen tried to pull out the Azir, and it really looked less than stellar. Like, what are you guys' thoughts on that? Was it a good pick, or was it just Jinsen not showing up on the champion?
I mean, Keen showed up on us here in another game.
I think the Azir pick was okay. It worked well and it worked fine in lane. I think the issue was that we traded 2 towers in top lane for 2 towers in bottom lane, and then they were constantly just sending Keen bot lane to split push, and we were constantly being busy at other points on the map, and we just really weren't able to answer that. So I don't think it was necessarily a pick ban issue, but more just a team coordination issue.
All right.
And they set up a 1-3-1 pretty well also, so that kind of hurt. Since Azir can't go around the map all that well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Twisted Fate's map ability is something that's really hard to deal with, because if you take TP along with his ultimate, he can just move everywhere so quickly. It's really hard to kind of answer a lot of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very his global pressure is really unmatched by anyone else. So I can totally understand with a comp that has so much pick potential, how that can really throw C9 off. Yeah, the other two games, they look fantastic though. I think that Jinsen is definitely playing super well right now, apart from the Azir game. Like he had in game 1, he had an Echo ult in the top lane where it looked like he got caught out, and then he ended up ulting backwards and basically insta-gibbing the Corki and the Maokai, and basically completely won them the team fight and the game off of it.
Yeah, that play was super clutch, and then his rise in game 3 was great.
Yeah.
He was just obliterating people. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think one question I want to ask you guys: what do you think about Ray? This was his first series to play this season. He played in Game 1 and Game 2. How do you think he measures up against Impact?
Okay, so I'm gonna say that in game one, Ray did okay. He was on Shen, and it wasn't like the best matchup for him. So him falling behind is okay because he got pushed in a lot and he moved around the map okay. Like he he tried to save contracts a couple times, but contracts went a little too ham, and maybe the communication wasn't there. But Ray's performance in game two was pretty unacceptable, and that is the reason that he got benched for game three. Um, he was 70 CS down to Maokai at one point in time, and then he finished the game 90 CS down. That's not a lane that you should be losing that badly, because it was a tank battle, and both of Nautilus and Maokai can beat each other senseless for hours and hours, and no one will die. And he still lost that matchup so badly, and that's kind of what lost us the game.
Well, I think to be fair, a couple things. Ray is really more of a carry top lane player. He likes playing Jace. He likes playing
Fizz.
Fiora, Camille. Uh, Pretty much anything you can send on the top lane that prioritizes more bruise versus damage stats over just pure tank. So maybe he felt just too restricted by the low damage output. Also, he's a fairly new young player and he's going up against Someday. So I kind of am not surprised that he didn't play all too well in the second game.
Um, I will say yes, he did get thrown to the Sharks. Someday was arguably the best top laner in the world last year, so it's not like he was playing against a normal person. But in game three, Impact came in and made that matchup even. So obviously there's a big gulf in class, because him losing that matchup that badly was honestly like really, really, really bad.
My thoughts on this are that I believe they need to keep playing Ray when they can, because he's like really their future
Yeah, for
top
sure.
laner. Once Impact's contract runs out, he's probably going to go back to Korea, and so they'll be left with Ray, and so they need to play him as much as they can, and get him experience and help him learn and all that, because he'll be playing alongside one of the best top laners in the world in Impact, so he'll be able to teach him a lot of really good stuff, and he'll also be able to build synergy with the team that way. So I think it's really, really important that they do that, but not to the point where it starts losing them series. But for like as we saw with CLG last year, the championship points really do matter now. It like spring split isn't something that you can blow off anymore and still make it to worlds just like easy peasy. Like it, winning spring split is like super important now, and so they need to get Ray experience, just not to where it loses them series. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I think that he'll grow into like a really good top laner. It'll just take a little bit of time.
Yeah, I I agree with that, but he has a ton of experience. He got thrown to the Sharks, but this Someday made him look like Impact did against a Kuve against Samsung at Worlds. So I can't imagine he can do any worse than he did that game. Granted, he didn't feed, so I mean he did what he had to do, but him being so far behind kind of killed us that game.
Well, we'll just have to see how he all pans out. I'm sure he'll do better as the season goes on. One final question before we move on to the match preview for this weekend. What are your guys' thoughts on Contracts and Cloud9's direction as a team? I think this is a really great start. Cloud9, or Contracts rather, he did make some rookie mistakes against Chaser, but since Chaser is like this very experienced Korean player, he's going to be able to exploit those mistakes a lot more than perhaps other junglers. But I think on the whole, he did a great first showing. He was able to channel his aggression, but also be selfless and play for the team rather than himself. And I think this is a much more coordinated, much more synergistic Cloud9, and I think we can really have a run at getting the championship this season.
I mean, it didn't take him 50 minutes to learn Lee Sin in one game, so
There it
He
is.
learned it in 30.
There it is,
Five.
boys.
so there you go.
Yeah, contracts to me, he looks.
He was very good.
Yeah, he looked really, really good. Shows a lot of promise. I'm very excited to see how C9 ends up, like later on with him, like how much he can improve and all that. The one thing that I do think could be a potential downfall of his, which I believe will be something that can be easily fixed, was he got extremely overconfident versus Dig. He did extremely well in the TSM series. Everyone thought he looked amazing. Game 1 versus Dig, he looks really good. But he got really cocky, and he started making really, like, arrogant mistakes. He started getting predictable in the jungle, and so he didn't look as strong, and Dig caught on to that. And so that's something that if he does that continuously and he cannot adapt, then I think it will be very bad for him later on when teams start really figuring out his play style. But if Reaper can like be like, hey, yeah, like adapt and do this stuff and like don't get overconfident, I think that he'll be like really, really top tier NA talent, like definitely top 2 junglers in NA if he can get those slight problems worked out.
Yeah, overall, I thought he did look good. It was a really good first week and for him. He showed us a lot of the promise that he has, and he also showed us that he's still a rookie and that he's prone to making mistakes, which was probably capitalized by when I think it was maybe game 3 against Dig. He flashed over the wall and tried to kill Keen, I think it was.
Yeah, I believe so.
And he got ulted and got wrecked. So he made some mistakes, but overall I thought that he looked good. So I'm happy to see how he grows in all the other rookie mistakes that he makes.
Yeah, I also think one other big point, just real quick, is that even when he did make these mistakes, even though if he was maybe getting a little bit behind or not playing as optimally as he should have, he didn't tilt. The team didn't tilt when they were making mistakes or when Contracts was making mistakes. They persevered and they kept their head on their shoulders and figured out what to do next. And I think that's really key, because I think with Meteos, if Meteos made a couple mistakes, he would kind of tilt a bit or he'd feel less confident. But Contracts was constantly just going in and keeping that level of aggression, no matter how many mistakes he had made prior. So I think that's a really good indicator of the kind of jungler we have. So I'm really, really excited to see what he's going to be bringing in the future.
Yeah, that's the mark of a really, really good player, is when you're able to make mistakes, but they don't let you, like they don't get you down, and you're able to recover from them. And that really is something that sets apart the good teams from the great teams, is like all teams make mistakes. SK Telecom makes mistakes. They made mistakes in Worlds, but they were able to bounce back from them and cover up their mistakes with better play after the mistakes. And so and
subbing Bangy for Blink.
Yeah, there but yeah, like I think that's something that will really carry C9 to greatness, is if they are able to overcome their mistakes and be level-headed throughout the game, despite shortcomings that will happen sometimes, because that's something that Meteos struggled with a lot, and that really, really showed in Worlds when he started getting invaded by other junglers, and when he didn't have a good performance, he would start getting really down on himself and get really tilted, and it was super obvious. But Contracts didn't show that, so I'm extremely pleased with his performance.
I don't think Cloud9 have really been tested yet, though. You know, you have to go through a period where maybe you're losing a couple of games in a row and you lose a few series, and then the negative attitude around the team starts to actually affect you. I think it's a lot easier when you have a lot of veterans, when you're not shot calling, and you're winning games. You know, you lose one game, you say, oh, you're going to swap this player, and when one of those players you're swapping in is the world champion, probably helps a lot, right?
Yeah. Especially
from a confidence issue, when you know you can rely on your other teammates. But again, if things are starting to look bad and you're starting to lose all your games, then that's the hard part. How do you recover from that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That'll be the real test of C9's willpower, and how they adapt will be if they do start losing those games, like what happens. So
I don't
totally
expect
agree.
C9 to lose a lot of games this split though. Looking at them, they seem very strong in all aspects. You have one very strong top laner, and another that will probably grow into being a very good one in his own respect. You have a strong head start rookie jungler who's only going to grow and get better. You have a mid laner who can absorb a lot of pressure, and I argue his greatest strength is laning. And you have a bot lane that plays very safe and conservative and doesn't die.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. I think C9 definitely looks like the best team in NA right now. It is just like if they do slip up once or twice, what they're going to do in those situations to correct that. So it is just like we'll have to wait and see.
All right, we gotta move on. Sorry, but we're burning daylight here. Let's move on to the weekend match preview. The first match is on Saturday. Cloud9 will be playing against Immortals. I think biggest weaknesses for Immortals is probably their bot lane, Kodi-san and Ole, not looking too sharp, and their overall coordination and synergy just isn't there. Dardak is a strong jungler, and he has strong solo laners in Pobelter and Flame, but they haven't really seemed to be cohesive, at least after the two series that they played this last weekend. So I think our overall synergy and shot calling and everything can probably just trump them, and we have strong laners ourselves, so I think overall we can persevere, I think.
I think we match up pretty good with Immortals. I think if you look down at the lineup, we win pretty much every lane, including the jungle. I don't think Dardak looked all that great last week, and I think one of the scariest stats about Immortals last week was if you look at the death stats for the whole league, the most amount of deaths are Pobelter with 28, Dardak with 23, Flame with 23. So they're dying a lot, and we've looked really good at this split, and we're just not dying. We have the second least amount of deaths, and it's by 1 to FlyQuest.
Yeah, for sure. I think that Immortals, like their strong points, just looking at their roster, are top, jungle, and mid. Top and jungle specifically, because Dardak's been known to be like a really, really strong player, and he can help out his all-star top laner. So like that combination really stands out to me. Pobelter is really good, but he didn't look super good the whole time he was playing. He looked kind of shaky at some points. But like I believe C9's bot lane really outclasses Immortals' bot lane. And so like I think that if they can play off of their bot lane and try and get the bot lane ahead, because I think all the other lanes are going to go even. If they can snowball the bot lane even harder than I think they already will, I think that'll be like a super easy win for C9.
One thing with Immortals, or at least with Dardak, is that I've noticed, at least when he was on Liquid, if his team is not doing well, if his team is behind, he seems to take it upon himself to force plays to happen, and he'll become extremely aggressive.
Oh yeah, he would tilt so
that
hard.
often costs them their game. If you remember back in playoffs versus CLG, I think it was the final game against CLG, or the fourth game against CLG, he was playing Gragas, and he makes this super aggressive dive into bot lane, just completely whips his abilities, wastes the flash, and puts his team super far behind. And none of that was necessary. It was just a very low likelihood of success anyways.
Yeah.
And he just continues to tilt from that. And he doesn't seem like a player that, if you start to lose, you can really rely on him to temper his aggression.
Yeah, he's a very swingy player. He's either doing really well when he's ahead, or if he gets behind, if his team just kind of falls behind a little bit, it's like his play really suffers.
And that's one of the issues I have with Dardak as a jungler. Now I'm biased, right? I vastly prefer having someone like Xmithy over Dardak, but part of that's because I have confidence that someone like Xmithy, you can put him on any style. against any jungler, and he will adapt to it, and he'll play differently based on the matchup and how the team's going. Someone like Dardoch, I expect him to go and fully pick the carry champions more or less every game. I don't expect him to go and play a tankier jungler or a supportive style jungler as well as someone else. It seems like he thrives on having winning lanes and being able to be very aggressive. He's a very Svenskeren-like player.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Who, again, I mentioned earlier, I think one criticism I have of Svenskeren is that he relies upon having winning lanes. I think that if you take away winning lanes, he suffers a lot. And I'm not saying you lose every lane, but a good part of what he does relies upon that.
Yeah, I agree. Was there anything else anyone wanted to say before we moved on?
Yeah, I just think that this is a series that we should win just because our macro game so far has looked a lot better. In four of our 5 games, we've killed the first 3 towers first, while Immortals has only done it twice in their 6 games. And they also have bottom half Baron control percentage, and their first Baron percentage, I believe, was last in all of week 1. So I think that this is a game that we should win. Our lanes are all stronger. Our weakest lane outclasses, our arguably weakest lane, bot lane, completely outclasses theirs. And I think this is a game that we could maybe see Impact and Ray play and look okay.
Yeah, for sure. I'd actually really like to see them put in Ray.
I think they'll see how Impact does game 1. I'm assuming Impact will be played first.
Oh, yeah, I could totally see them doing the thing where they play Impact, and then if they win game 1 super handily, they put in Ray and see how he does, and then sub Impact back in if they lose that. I could totally see that as well.
Well, we'll just have to see. Saturday, I'm not sure what time. It depends on time zones, but Saturday.
I'll get those.
Yeah,
It's Friday.
At
I
the
thought
end.
the first game was on Friday for Cloud9.
Yeah, it's
Oh no, I'm thinking Cloud9. Wait, it's Saturday. Yeah.
CLG.
it's
Yeah.
2 p.m.
That part is.
Central on Saturday.
yes.
3 p.m.
All right, yeah.
Eastern
And then the
Standard
CLG
Time.
game is the very last game of the day on Sunday. It's 5 p.m. Central, so 6 p.m. Eastern.
6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And speaking of CLG, I think that's actually going to be a really interesting game. 6A and Aphromu are probably one of the strongest bot lane duos in North America, probably next to ours. I'm not sure about their solo lanes. Darshan looked really shaky, at least from what I heard during his games that he played. Kuki actually looked to be steadily improving.
So
Like most
Well,
people
it's
have
not-
said.
if so, I can give my opinions. I can give my opinions on that, just having watched their games.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I
give
really
the-
wanna hear-
Why don't you talk about it, Nefarious, since you are
Sure.
the CLG expert?
What is it that you wanted to hear me talk about? You're mentioning something.
Oh, I was just gonna say, just like go for it and give your opinions on like the matchups.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Sure.
How the game's
so,
gonna go.
Let's start with the top side of the map. Darshan versus Impact and Ray, right?
Sure.
Darshan's not been having a very good time recently. Ever since the latter end of last split, really since post MSI, he's been struggling to find his form, and it's become very apparent, especially in his laning. In the era of lane swaps, he was able to cover up a bit of his laning, and CG were able to play the map and gain a lot of advantages, especially for Darshan, which he was able to snowball on the carry top laners. Now, recently, he's also not very much a tank player. Arguably, his best champion, you could say, is Poppy. It was very much noticed at MSI. But Poppy's a little different. I think Poppy is, out of all the tank top laners, she's the most carry-like. Put air quotes around the word carry, but she easily is very good at a lot of different things. Now, you put him back on a meta which favors playing Fiora and Jax and Gnar and Camille. I think he'll start to shine a lot more. You're seeing in the pick and ban phase, he is drawing a lot of bans. He's drawing Camille bans, he's drawing Fiora bans. Teams are not letting him play those two champions, and It's pretty easy to understand why when you look back to how well he played when the splits in which CLG won, right? A lot of times CLG was known as the split push team, and Darshan would just split push them to victory while CLG played around the map. I think right now it is Impact favored. I would expect Impact to do better. Now, Ray, I'm not entirely sure how Ray would do against Darshan. I'd have to actually see that. I'm not saying Ray is a bad top laner. I just don't know, because remembering from last split, Ray played one game against CLG on Fizz, and he played Tank Fizz, and they played super annoying. He played Tank Fizz, he had GA, they had a Zillion on the team, it was just impossible to kill the Fizz. The second time around, I can't remember if CLG won or not. So yeah, that's my view on the top lane side. As for jungle, I think jungle actually favors Xmithy over Contracts. I think Xmithy has a lot more experience. He's commonly known as Neutralizer, at least among CLG fans. And I know Scar was the one that really started coining that term, and that's because you don't ever really see Xmithy lose in the jungle. He's someone that you can go up against any of the other junglers, and he always seems to do well. He always seems to be able to match the play of the other jungler, and can usually go and invade and make plays around the map. For example, people often say, oh, well, Dardoch is super good, he's going to beat Xmithy. I have yet to see that happen in any of the games with Team Liquid versus CLG. Reignover, he's the best jungler in all of North America, but I haven't really seen any games where Reignover gets the better of Xmithy. If anything, Xmithy does either even, and then it's based on, how much are the lanes of either team winning or losing. Now, you even look at Worlds, Xmithy was one of the better players of CLG at Worlds, along with Stixxay. Those two are probably our best players. So, I think that is vastly favored in Xmithy. Contracts, he's a very good player. He could surprise, but I don't see it going his way. As for mid lane, most people will probably put the money on Jensen. Jensen is, in my opinion, a much stronger laner, but that would be playing to Jensen's strength. He's not someone who likes to lane. He's someone who likes to roam and go help the side lanes. And if you notice, his champions that he plays tend to augment his strengths like that. He's obviously very well known for his Aurelion Sol play, and arguably the cleanest game COG's ever played was Aurelion Sol on Huhi, when they absolutely demolished Rock's Tigers at Worlds. Now, in last week of LCS, you saw Huhi play Corki, Katarina, Echo, and there's another champion I'm forgetting. But he played pretty well on almost all of those champions. He didn't play too well on Corki, but there was also that mishap in bot lane around the 8-minute mark. So that game was pretty much lost, as long as Team Liquid didn't do anything to throw. But when you looked at the Katarina game, I thought he was the best player in CLG. When you looked at the Echo game, he did a lot of work early game. He got a lot of early kills. He made a lot of roaming. And he did get solo kill onto Froggen. So he's definitely stepped up. How well will he do against Jensen now? I don't know. Again, I still think it's Jensen favored in terms of laning, but I think Huhi will do something and try to make the roams. Now, one argument against Jensen I have is that Jensen is not a player who will roam. He is someone who's going to sit there and he's going to draw pressure in mid lane. He wants you to come to him, and he's going to try to dodge everything he possibly can and then outplay you. That is a strength of his, but again, you're not relying on Jensen to go roam around the map. So, different strengths. Jensen favored in laning, Huhi favored for roaming. As for bot lane, I think Stixxay and Sneaky are both fantastic laners. I know Mark Zimmerman put them both at the top tier of AD carries in North America, and I'd agree with that. Stixxay was easily one of the best players of last week in all of NA. He was one of COG's best players at MSI and at Worlds. So Stixxay is someone you can rely upon. Now, one issue here is that Aframu's not doing very well in this meta. He's usually known as a playmaker. So you're going to put him on someone like Morgana, like Thresh, like Alistair, like Bard. He wants to go, he wants to roam, he wants to make plays. And this is not his meta. Seeing him on Misfortune was absolutely depressing. he did not look comfortable on that champion at all. It would be as if, you get your random auto-filled support and says, MF's a support, I'll play MF. It was not good. Whereas Smoothie, he seems to be comfortable on the MF. He's good on the Taric. You can play just a lot of different champions, a lot of different styles. So I think CLG still has a lot of work to do. I think the bot lane will go in favor of Cloud9, partly because your AD carries don't really do anything. For one, supports have always dictated how bot lane goes, but two, AD carry right now this meta is just absolutely useless. You're picking Ashe, who does decent late game damage, don't get me wrong, but you're picking Ashe and Varus and Jhin. And what do they have? They have great ultimates, which you're going to use for engage. And personal opinion, I think Varus is just absolutely useless unless he snowballs. I'd much rather have Ashe, but they're not going to do very much. And if you're looking at the supports, if you have Smoothie, who's much more comfortable in the champions than Aphromoo, I think that it favors Cloud9.
All right. I do agree with a lot of what you said. I think that specifically the jungle role, a lot of people might disagree with you who are Cloud9 fans, just like, oh yeah, Contracts is amazing, but like Xmithy is this veteran player that has like a ton of experience, and he's a real rock for CLG. He always shows up. So I do agree with you that I think the jungle matchup is in favor of Xmithy, at least for now. I do have to disagree with when you say AD carries are useless. It might feel that way in solo queue, but whenever not CLG, whenever C9 played, I want to say it was TSM, and they had it was one of the games that went really, really long. I know they've all went kind of long, but it was one of the ones that went longer than the others. Sneaky had by far and away the most damage done to champions at the end of the game. And so,
Sixley was the same way too in the CLG games where we won, especially against Envy. Sixley was always able to come through and be clutch at the end of the games and carry us right there in the team fights. But the issue is you have to get there, and that takes up to 3-4 items in 35-40 minutes. And I was looking primarily at the laning perspective.
Okay, yeah, in the laning perspective, yeah, they aren't very useful in the laning, so that does make sense. And it does take time to ramp up, so that's definitely a factor when it comes to the overall strength of a team. The other thing that you didn't talk about was overall team cohesion and macro gameplay.
Sure.
CLG didn't look super strong, at least from my point of view, when it came to macro play. They looked really lost.
So I think I can touch upon that a little bit. Part of it, I mentioned it, this is not COG's meta, it's not their style. Aphromoo wants to be on the playmakers. Darshan is not really used to being an initiator for team fights. Neither is Xmithy, he's usually used to following up on team fights. So when you have the roles completely flipped, Darshan has to initiate, Aphromoo has to be a high damage mage. It's just not something that they're used to, It's great for Hui, he's been able to step up and do a lot better, and because you have a few assassins like Echo and Katarina, he's been able to play those very effectively. Stixxay, he also prefers the long-range hyper carries, your Tristana, your Caitlyn. So he's very well known on those two champions, right? Those are the ones that he played especially well at Worlds. And if you remember the the TSM COG series, which went down to 5 games, and in the end it was off of Stixxay's Hurricane Rageblade Tristana. That game centered around Caitlyn, or that entire series centered around the Caitlyn pick. So those two are his signature champions, and what you're seeing is just, it's not COG's meta.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think in time they will get better at it and they will adapt to it. But until then, just please no more misfortune on Aphromoo.
Yeah. What do you guys think about it?
For me, I think that if CLG has any chance of winning this coming week, it's if Xmithy goes off. I think Xmithy is their only chance of keeping this game even, just because I think Hui is actually a trash tier and a a mid laner, like maybe not bottom tier, but like one tier above that. It just based on his stats from last year and what I've seen. And Jensen is arguably the top mid laner in NA right now. So I think we win that 90% of the time. Though I will say who he did solo kill Jensen last year at one point in time. But I think that if Impact plays, he beats a Darshan, assuming it's tank versus tank. Granted, it's also tank versus tank, so it doesn't matter all that much. But I think that our bot lane is stronger overall, but it's going to be a tough matchup there. I just think that a mid lane is too good, and in that Contracts isn't bad enough for it to be too much of a washout there.
I think if you want to tip the scales in COG's favor, I think you make a mistake and you give Darshan Fiora or Camille. Those are his, bread and butter comfort picks, and those are something that he can very much carry on. Now, one issue was that he didn't have very good TP usage throughout the Envy games and the what was the first game? I forget the team. Team Liquid, right? So that is a big cause of concern. But again, he will find his form. I have faith in that. Again, Xmithy versus Contracts. I still think Xmithy is the better jungler right now, but your jungler can only do so much if your lanes win or lose. So it is partly to look at how the lanes go. You mentioned Huhi not being as good. I think Huhi gets a lot more flack than he actually deserves. He was not very good the first split. I think he improved a lot during the second split. But then you had people just constantly memeing on his Azir. And then you looked at some of the other champions he played. You hear, Huhi's just a Aurelion Sol one trick. But he is known as an assassin player. So arguably there should be champions that he can pick up and play and do well on those.
Yes. Looking at Summer Split last year, Huhi was dead last in gold differential at 10 minutes and second to last, only in front of GPM at CS difference at 10 minutes. So statistically, he hasn't been that strong.
I agree. I don't think Huhi was amazing, but I think he was definitely better than the first split. And I'm saying that the amount he improved was overshadowed just by how much people will continue to rail on him.
Yeah, I think he's definitely made improvements. That's like undeniable.
That's not hard though.
Get the air horns ready.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Frozen's leaving some shots fired. Pew, pew, pew.
Let's jump into predictions for this week. Nefarious, what are your prediction? Or I guess we'll just do CLG for you. What's your prediction for the CLG Cloud9 matchup?
So, my brain says right now 2-1 Cloud9, but my heart says 2-1 CLG.
I feel that. I've said C9 will win matches that they have no business winning, so I totally understand where you're coming from.
It really depends, I think, on a lot of factors. On what Aphromu plays, on how well Darshan does that day, and, does Huki get to make impactful roams, or does he lose to Jensen lane?
Yeah, I think that as of now, I want to say 2-1 C9, because I think that CLG overall, their macro play has looked really lacking, and that's something that C9 has looked good at, as well as C9 having stronger lanes. So I think that C9 will take it. I feel like what you said about Xmithy will hold true, at least in one game, where he will Contracts might either get cocky or Xmithy might get one of his lanes really far ahead, and they can carry the game. But overall, I think that C9 just looks I think they look stronger. But we have only seen them play 2 series so far, so there is a lot that has yet to be seen. So there's no telling who can end up taking this series in the end.
What's your prediction for the first match?
I think
for Immortals. You
I
forgot
think
about
Immortals.
Immortals.
I think
Cloud9 wins.
I think we're gonna 2-0 Immortals.
I also think 2-0 Immortals.
I have I guess it depends where Ray comes in. If Ray comes in, that is a chance for someone to snatch a game. But I think this is a weekend that we should 4-0.
Right,
Yeah, I think definitely in terms of overall wins 4-0. I'm gonna say 2-1 for both. I think Dardoch can maybe surprise us with some clutch plays because he can perform. And Contracts is still relatively new, and Dardoch may be able to abuse that. But I think through our superior skill in team play, I think we can beat Immortals, and I think we can beat CLG. Definitely some fun matches, so I will be looking forward to it.
Who do you guys think is going to be the tougher opponent?
CLG.
Yeah, I would say CLG. Immortals don't register on my radar as much.
Yeah, CL.
I think when you looked at the Immortals TSM match, no one really won that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like a mess.
CLG has looked a little sloppy in their macro play, but as sloppy as they have looked, Immortals has looked like 10 times worse.
I think CLG's macro early on is okay. You know, it's not great, but it's okay. But then they're not closing out games right now.
Yeah, their ability to make decisive calls, and it's like, what do we need to do to end the game? It was like they would get Baron and they wouldn't be able to take anything off of it, or they would just end up stalling out around Baron and the enemy would end up taking it. So it's like their shot calling and decisiveness late game just doesn't seem to be there right now.
And again, I think part of it again stems from Afaru not being on champions he knows and plays very well, because he is the shot caller of the team, and when you have him unable to do his thing, you know, it's just really odd.
Yeah, I totally agree.
All right, we've gone a bit too long, so let's go down the line and do our moment of the week really quickly. My moment of the week was kind of cheating because technically the mic check came out I think today, but after the Echo Ultimate into the Dignitas game 1, after the almost ace, Sneaky was like, I almost got into the fight because he couldn't jump in on Ashe. Havokpus?
I'm probably gonna say just 2-0ing TSM, and Contracts just stunting on them with that Lee Sin. Looked really good. It was really fun to watch. Really, really glad that we beat those guys. So that'll be mine.
What about you, Nefarious?
So during the COG Envious game, one thing happened was Stixay led on arrow, and it just completely whiffed. First thing Afremu says, it's going to be a long season, boys. And then who he responds with, don't arrow anymore.
That's funny. My moment of the week, I'm going to have to agree with Havoc on this one. 2-0ing TSM felt really fucking good.
All right, feels good, man. Feels Cloud9, man. All right, but this is it for us today. Thank you for listening to the 22nd episode of Bodied, the Cloud9 Fancast. Feel free to tweet questions and feedback to @C9Bodied or email us at bodiedfancast@gmail.com. Maybe with this great season, we could probably actually get some questions rolling in. And CLG fans too, if you want to send us some questions, be sure to do that. Questions might be answered on the next show, so be sure to have those rolling in. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Oh, and thank you, Nefarious.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Joining us
if anyone
today.
wants to contact me, you can just contact me at Nefarious, NEFERI0USS on Twitter.
Yeah, thanks.
And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Thanks for coming.